So the opening move of that kind of main first sequence is like this. And one of the things that I was taught actually outside a Chinese restaurant once was that there was always this emphasis on bringing this hand way back. And so what, can you stand over here? What Tillman told me was, guy grabs you, and the opening move in some sense represents you being grabbed by two hands. But also you kind of do this to get that hand out there. And then you reach out this way. That this motion here, this back motion, and you're going to take the Isshin-ryu fist and clip right there. And then punch. So the motion, boom. So this is the big part. And this is one of those where it was the first time I felt the electricity go down to the bottom of my feet, was on that clipping back to front. Gallbladder, 20. You can also use triple worm or 12 for that. But here's another possibility. Guy grabs you here, and you go, whoa, this way. Now what I do is right here is his heart meridian is up in here. His heart 2 point is right here. So I can take my Isshin-ryu fist using this part of my knuckle. I can tap up this way into his heart 2 point. Or I can use the back of my knuckle this way, boom, here. And then punch either up into the armpit, or because I've stretched out, I can also punch into the stretched out rib cage by the heart. Okay, so this is attacking the heart. Now there's this movement in the kata where you turn and you do this. And that's for two guys, two people are attacking you. And here's what's interesting. If I take these two guys and I stand them and I position them carefully so I can reach them, right? And I chop them. And what'll happen is I'll get an effect, but it won't be terrible. But if they grab me, so let's say that each guy's grabbed me by the shoulder, and maybe they've each grabbed my upper arm, because they're going to take me out, they're going to send me out, they're throwing me out of the joint. I sink my weight because they've grabbed me. Then the reaction is amplified because they've grabbed me. Something else that's very strange to see. So if I hit, so this is the same principle, different technique. If I hit him, back of both head, right? See, it hurts. If I hit with one, not as bad. But if they each grab me and then I hit them opposite, it's as if I hit each of them on both sides of the head. It's something to do with the way the energy connects through the body. So this is just one of those really oddball little things to know, that when people grab you, if two people grab you and you hit them both equally, the effect is amplified somehow through them. So after this, I'm supposed to turn. And the reason you have that kind of motion in the forms, this comes from a kata called Basai, so that's why it's in here. Suin-Tsu is based on Seisan. It starts with Seisan, but it's Goju Seisan. And then the next kata that it represents heavily is the kata called Basai. And you have this motion in Basai. One of the things that happens when you do this is you tend to get a bigger reaction, if you're right-handed like me, to the guy on the right than the guy on the left. So you chop, guy on the right goes, the guy on the left might still be standing, so we still have to deal with him just this. So what it does is it always turns to deal with the guy on the left. And it deals with the guy on the left in a way consistent with what you've already done. So if I chopped him in the neck, which is to say on the stomach meridian, I need to then continue to work the stomach meridian, or I need to go after a water meridian. So I hit here, this motion turns, there's the back of his head, there's the water meridian right there. This is a little bit delicate. I don't actually recommend that you hit this water point. It's a bladder 9. Or bladder 10, because you have to get the angle right, or it's a little bit not so safe. But if you have the angle right, it has a good effect. If you have the angle wrong, not so safe. If you want to play with the bladder meridian in a way that's interesting but not too hurtful, but it creates an interesting effect, what you do is you cup your hand like this. You take the opponent's head, you kind of stretch their neck like that. You pull their head down so their chin is towards their body. With a cupped hand, you kind of slap over their spine, but the spine itself will not be exposed. And you get that kind of very weird reaction where it feels like the energy just leaves the whole body. But I didn't hit the spine, so because I was cupped, there was no contact on the spine itself, no contact on the spinal nerve. All of the contact, in fact, if you look, you can see the red here, but the middle is not. I mean, the bright induration from impact is on either side, but not in the center. So that's a very interesting technique, just to get the feeling of how taking the energy out of the bladder meridian kind of affects the body. There's this motion this way. And it's relatively straightforward. It's actually a very straightforward technique. And there's only a couple minor variations on it. But the main thing is you're being grabbed. You're being grabbed again. We're always being grabbed. You strike, because it starts from here. Take the guy's head, give his head a twist, and you pull his head down, which folds his body. And you come up, boom, into his body, and then you kick down. Now you can be kicking into the inguinal crease, into the knee, or into the opposite leg, depending on how his body ends up when you do this. But the motion here, the key parts of the motion here is strike to stun him, bring his head in nice and tight. Notice how I'm maintaining control. I'm not just, see, this is where a lot of people get it wrong. They go, chop, and their elbows are out. See how his arms are free? I keep my elbows in, his arms aren't free. He's tied up in my body. When I bring my knee up, right into his chest, because it's right there. Really hard into his chest, and then down onto, in this case, what I did was I went with the bend of his leg and drove his knee into the concrete. This is not concrete, but you understand. So the motion becomes 1. Okay? These kinds of punching motions are, a lot of times when people do it, they go, which is dumb. It's actually here. It's the same as in Sanchin. It's the same kind of motion, because what's happening is something's coming at you, which you're parrying and rolling in, and then you strike with 2 strikes. The reason you want to use the 2 strikes is to create this cross-body effect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a nice couple of points to make this observation. If I punch here, this is the lung meridian. Down here, that's gallbladder and liver, so that's metal and wood. So if watch his body response when I hit. Now, hopefully you saw what happened was he took the hit and then his body went like this. So the physical reaction of his body is as if I hit him in the middle, okay? So this is a helpful thing to see in pressure points, is that the body, when you hit 2 points, the body reacts as though you hit in the middle. We actually, the way that that's put is the pain meets in the middle. So the body reaction meets there. When we get to this technique, this one, it's very difficult for me to do this on a guy who's about my size. I mean, I need someone about like that. This is not a technique for someone our size, because we know what this move is for. Tatsuo shows it on film. But it's against the guy who's really huge. So the best I can do is describe it to you. What happens is someone's grabbing, and you're going to fold their wrist back, shift your weight to twist them down, which puts their weight on that leg, and then you kick that leg with a kind of short round kick. Now, I can't get there because it just doesn't line up right. I'm too big relative to him. Somebody who's very small will find that their round kick will go right into that spot real easily. The best I can do to apply the principle but not the technique is use my knee like that. The key thing is, now you notice I let go of him. All right, so I come in this way. I come in here, his weight's on this leg. I knee him, I let go of him. What happens if I don't let go of him? So we'll do this very slowly so you kind of get a sense of this. His weight's on this leg, I knee him. Notice how he's falling on top of the leg that I just kneed. If I don't let go of him, in other words, if I keep the joint controlled here, but kick the leg, what happens is his body weight falls on the leg I just kicked, which means his knee can get hurt in that process, which is, of course, the idea. Because if he falls and hurts his leg, he can't chase me when I run away. We have this sequence. It goes 1, 2. Just like in Wansu, hit front and back this way, folds a guy over. But what I'm going to do is, instead of using the gallbladder meridian point on the back of the head, I'm going to use this point, this triple warmer point right here. So maybe he's grabbed me. I'm going to tap triple warmer. I'm going to use this yin palm. But again, it's not a fingertip strike. It's this soft palm. But I'm hitting on the side of his body, right about here. Okay. So I'm going to tap. I'm going to tap up here, and I'm going to tap down here. And this keeps my elbow right in front of him. See my elbow here? So that the next thing I do is I pop my elbow forward. From here. And this motion is surprisingly strong. Now, you wouldn't imagine that, because it doesn't look like anything. But I'm in this position. see how my body's nice and square? All I'm going to do is rotate my body. Okay? So at very, now I'm getting even closer. I'm way too close to hurt him. Okay, this is just body motion. This is a very heavy technique, and you don't expect that in these very, very close ranges. And this is why people try to create distance so they can create power, because they think distance equals power. That's not true. Power is body motion. So it doesn't really matter if I throw my punch from here, even if my hand is right here and I just turn my hip, I can hit really hard because it's the body motion that does the work. So elbow strikes are actually done very, very close. You also notice they're low. You never elbow up here. Okay? So when you see in a martial arts book or something, you see this, never do that. That actually makes it very, very vulnerable. If you really have to hit the head, then the way you hit somebody's head is you bring their head down here. So you always want to keep your own elbow below the level of your armpit. So you never want to elbow above the level of your own armpit. So you want to keep it low. This protects your shoulder joint. These close double elbow motions are primarily not elbows anyway, because before my elbow reaches him, my fist does. So it's really here. It's 1, 2. It's a double hit. Come this way. So you go 1, 2, 1, 2. So I'm not, the elbow is secondary to that initial, what I'm really thinking about is the first, is the punch. The punch, he's short, and this is all body movement. So I'm not trying to actually get anything with my arms at all. So after I make this initial shot, all I do is really just turn my body. And you come up 45 degrees, and after hitting with the first shot, then the elbow comes in. And so this motion, there's just this little action. So these hits, fist, elbow, fist, elbow. But they're not necessarily only that. So for example, if this guy grabs me above the arm, he grabs me both of my arms, again, this is one of those things where I'm hey, you know. If I do this with my arms, okay, now watch me do my elbow strikes. Right? So you see how these become these punches, short punches into his face, or bring him down close. If I grab with this hand and then do my elbow with this side, now watch where the second elbow goes. See, into the arm, not into the head. Also, if he's grabbed me up on my wrists, just coming here, right? Here's my elbow strike. Again, with some of the same kind of, you notice that there's a certain repetition. If you say, wait, that looks like something we did in the Kihonwaza, the upper body exercises, and I saw something like that when we did Seichin, and I saw something like that in Nahanchi. That's because there's you only need one kata. The principles are all going to keep showing up in the different katas. So where similar moves are, you're going to get similar applications. I want to just mention a principle of how the body operates. It goes something like this. So here's his lung meridian. When I attack his lung meridian, one of the things that happens is that his body will try to protect his lungs. And this is his lung over here. And what's interesting is this lung meridian seems to be related to that lung. Now, that's in the case of lungs, which are on both sides. If, on the other hand, I go after the heart, see, that's his heart's over here. His heart's a little bit on the left side, so his body tries to hide his heart. So this is body reaction to protect. So the body's going to protect. And you'll notice in both cases how his body goes to this kind of rounded position. He kind of curls and rounds. And we do that because rounding is how you protect yourself. So, for example, curl up for me. Right. So if he curls up and I hit him in the stomach, I can hit him pretty hard. I can pound on his back pretty good, not get much of a reaction. If, on the other hand, he goes the other way and stretches way out, please, yes, then, but here's interesting, is even on the back. See? So what that means is if in this, now everyone who actually beats people for a living, you understand what I'm saying? People who beat people, they know this. So they know that what you want to do is create these kinds of vulnerabilities ahead of time. So for example, if I'm coming up behind somebody and my intention is to hit them in the back, I don't actually grab them by the shoulder and punch them in the back. What I want to do is I want to catch them this way, tip them back here so their back is curled, and then hit them in the back when they're all stretched out. So you want to stretch people into that position. So when you attack the meridian, the body goes into the protected position to try to protect the lung. So it moves the lung out of the way, but also it protects the lung. It's protecting the lung. So where did the vulnerability go? Well, the answer to the question is the vulnerability went back here. It went into the back because that's the furthest away from what I'm attacking. So whereas it's not vulnerable here. See, it is vulnerable back there. So that's what you have to understand this next technique. Tatsuo has this oddball technique. And most people go, oh, you go like this, and you come around like this. Ha! No, that's not what you're doing. What you do is the guy's got his guard up. I grab his wrist. And when I grab his wrist, I'm going to catch and lock onto the long meridian point. And then I turn this way, and all I'm doing is keeping pressure on that long meridian point. Now, I'm not really doing anything, but that's where the vulnerability is, right? There. Okay? See? So I'm not a big fan of turning my back on my opponent, but in this particular case, what I'm doing is I create vulnerability in the lung. That's where the vulnerability is, so I have to chase after the hole I just made, and that's how you get there. If you were working off the other hand, you might come here, and you might actually, this could be application for O-uchi, number 14. So the movement was here, 1, 2. So if we think about that, I lock here, I go like this, and strike into that vulnerable space on the back. So this motion in the form already, as anticipated, knows where the hole is, and it goes chasing the hole. So that's what that movement is for. When we do this technique, we usually do it with the foot kind of straight up. That's the common way. But when you do it in application, unless you're small, that doesn't work. So Tatsuo shows little guy being grabbed, big guy. He goes, and he puts his leg up and he pushes the guy away. We're not going to do that, partly because we're too big to do that, but also because all you're doing is creating space. So instead, what we want to do is we want to create something else. When we come up here, after we slap up, we're going to lock and pull down. So we're not trying to do like lock the elbows. We want to create two-way action to get this big body down reaction so that when I bring my knee up for my push, my quote-unquote push kick, my knee comes, boom, into his chest. Then when I push out, there's something for me to push against, and I can put him in that kind of vulnerable position. So the key is I don't just go like that. I come up here, and I squeeze with my thumbs. 1, boom, and I get my knee up high because I'm really trying to drive my knee into his chest. The sequence that turns, goes down, up, knee, punch is kind of instructive. But one of the things you have to know is that it's the palm strike. Everyone does a palm strike this way. If you do a palm strike like this, nothing will happen. First, it's a really awkward position for your hand. It's not natural. If you stand like this, not natural. If you stand like this, that's natural. So you don't want to palm strike in an unnatural way. You want to palm strike in a natural way. So that's the first thing. So the movement, this first motion comes, I'm going to put this into the crease of the thigh, what's called the inguinal crease. When I hit the inguinal crease, that's going to cause his head to come forward. This exposes right here. It's this point called stomach 5. That's where the palm goes. The palm goes into stomach 5. So inguinal crease in there is a point called spleen 12. So that's a wood point. So I hit the wood point, then I hit the earth point. Next I want a water point. That's where my knee's going to come in. I'm actually going to aim right for the bladder below the belt. And then once I've done that, the next target is a fire point. Depending on how far his head comes down, I can put triple warmer or right at the temple, triple warmer, fire point on his head, or I can aim into his chest and hit onto, it's just kind of above and to the outside of the nipple is the pericardium 1 point, which is right there. So you see that reaction that we got. And that was a very, in fact, I didn't even turn my hip, I just went like that. But that was because I'd first tapped him in these other places. I want to take just a minute to look at this section right here. It's 1, boom, kick. And what I want to do is I want to make a couple of observations about how this motion is done. He's got a gun, pointing a gun at you. Guns are obviously a problem, and the best thing to do is to say, here's my money. I kind of recommend that whatever you do, that you're afraid, but that you don't look away. And this is important, because if you look away, you're more likely to get shot. Most people, not everyone, certain psychopaths can kill people who are looking them in the eye, but most people can't. So if you look somebody in the eye, you're afraid, but you look him in the eye. And that's because fear usually looks away. So you have to be afraid, or feign, or at least, well, okay, I'd like to say pretend to be afraid, but the truth is you're wetting your pants. But you're looking him in the eye. Looking him in the eye. Also, as paralyzed and helpless as you possibly can be. Because he might be back there somewhere. He may say, give me your wallet. Right? And what I really want to do is I want him a lot closer. I need for him to come in, and to get a little bit pissed off at me, a little overconfident. He says, give me your wallet, and he gets that gun way up in here, because this is, but I don't want to look away from him, okay? Because now that he's inside my hands, I can beat him. I mean, the gun will go off, but it won't be facing me. So what I'm doing is I'm moving up this way, and I'm passing the gun into the crook of my own elbow, and I'm locking it up here, okay? That's a good place for a kick. Now, now you can take the gun this way, and what I did was I went, you understand that's what that movement is? So you can use that against a weapon in that fashion. Now the nice thing about, now you can also go the other direction. Don't look away, no. Okay, now I'm over here, and I've got this locked in. It can hit him, so I hit through his head. My hand goes down there, but I'm hitting through his head. Wham, kick. I can take the gun, hit through his head with the gun, pistol whip him, kick. But the most important part of the motion is that I'm trying to lock him right in here. That means while we do the technique, most of the time we go something like this. It's really more like this. It's upright, but it's very tight to the body. Here's a knife on my neck. What people want to do with a knife on their neck is they want to get the knife off their neck. It's very hard to do because now we're fighting. Instead, what I want to do is I want to use the pressure points on his wrist. I'm going to use the one up here, the lung meridian point. And I just sort of reach over, watch, right here. So now the knife is pinned to my body. Now I can take the knife. Okay? So again, I'm doing the same motion. Notice, but it's very tight to my body, very tight to my body. That's the key thing, is that this is very, very close to me. Now, if he's got the knife on this side, it's still going to be the same kind of thing. I go, see? That's that same position. My kick, take the knife, or hit him, What I'm doing is I'm kind of showing you the initial part of the motion, which is the sort of dealing with the immediate threat. Now, if the knife comes this way, he's stabbing. This is where I have to lock it here. It's the same principle, but I lock it here. So in other words, what I did was I just did Chinto instead of Wansu, or Sun Tzu. Chinto instead of Sun Tzu. So when it comes underneath, it's like, oh crap! Okay, so you see what I'm doing? I'm using these, I'm going to use a relatively few number of principles. I don't want to have to be thinking about what I'm doing. In my mind, they're not really different. It's get that thing like this. Get it like this. The only question is, do I get it like this or like this? Am I kind of scooping it up or coming over the top? And that's just where the thing is located. Comes with an overhead knife attack. Oh crap. Here, there. Okay, now if this is a double-edged, I get cut. If it's a single-edged, no problem. But you can strike, kick, and he's not going to be able to cut that much, and I can give it back to him. Gun's in my face, okay? I go, oh. Notice where the gun's pointing now? This is my hands are crossed this way. I got the gun pointing back at him. He's welcome to fire if he wants. It's up to him. I'm not going to say anything one way or the other. Whatever. Pull the trigger if you wish. Okay. And this is going to be a moment of interesting experience for him. But while he's worried about the gun, I have to do something else. Maybe I knee him up here. Maybe I take him down to the ground this way. Maybe I headbutt. Maybe I bite. Maybe I take the gun away, hit him with the gun. Whatever. But the point is that the initial motion is not, okay? See, everyone wants to get the gun away. This is not gun away. This is gun in. By the way, once you have that principle down, it doesn't really matter. What I just did there, guy's pointing a gun at me, I went, whoa, shuto. I just did shuto. I went, catch, chum, and I trapped it to my body. So here I started out doing Sun Tzu, and then I said, oh, Chinto. Now, shuto. Okay, so The principle is what's important. What you start seeing is that you have all of these movements, but they're all based on the same set of principles. You just do the principles all the time, and you'll be just fine. Let me just make a couple comments about Sanchin. Breathing, the most important thing. Sanchin is about breathing anyway. First, never stop your breath. So a lot of people go, don't do that. Never stop your breath. So inhale, exhale, you shouldn't be able to tell the difference. So if you're going to do hard Sanchin and do a lot of tension, it still needs to be so you never, ever break the breath. I don't actually like doing hard Sanchin and generally don't. I use soft Sanchin. So I'll do the same kata, I'll do it open hand, and I'll just do it as almost like a Qigong form, this way. Same moves, just open hand. There's also another variation which is quite interesting to do and to play around with. And that's that when you get to here and you're pulling the hands in this kind of a motion, what you do is you concentrate across the back. So you strengthen the back and also you squeeze your butt really tight. And what that does to your feet is it does this. See how the feet kind of pull in? And in particular the back foot. So you go, and that means that the next motion you come here as you punch, you have to push the heel back. So that's a very interesting way to do Sanchin. So you go that way. So it's fun to play around with that and to know that. But basically, the idea of Sanchin, if anything, the inhale is maybe more important than the exhale. So I've already mentioned that this fundamental motion in Sanchin, which is just, it's here this way, and see this locks it here, and then you go in and you hit. And as I hit, notice that I'm maintaining control down here. But here's the thing to really think about. Let's say that I have his hands. He's reaching for me, and I grab his hands. Listen to me as I breathe. Okay? Now, listen. Okay? So the difference, give me some resistance now. He's resisting me. I go, okay, watch. Inhale. When you inhale, you can steal some of his strength. You have to think about it in those terms, but you can inhale to steal strength. So when you're matched strength to strength and we're pushing against each other, so, see, I inhale and he goes down. So that's probably the main thing to know about Sanchin is that you inhale to steal strength from your opponent.